evening, folks, and welcome to a special edition of the Pilot Review Show. I am Captain Blade J52, and I am joined by some of my merry band of misfit cohorts and a special guest this evening. We have our favorite RP hologram, Artie.
Hey guys.
And we also have the crazy person to the other side of me,
Hi.
but not in the middle of this group. Yep. We have a teacher Kirby, and then our special guest Tacofangs this evening.
Hi.
There's Tacofangs, and I'm Teacher Kirby. How's it going? Blech. Words.
Yeah.
Blech.
Yep.
Couldn't get the words out.
Yes, words are hard. I blame lack of caffeine,
And I've
at
been,
least on my part.
well, I've been practicing Klingon words a lot lately for a special surprise we've been doing in Vegas. So, you know,
English
I'm
is
not
hard
gonna
at the
tell
moment.
anybody who it is. So, yeah, so sometimes I want to start to try and say the Klingon words again, and no.
I may or may not.
It better be
uh,
karaoke.
like
Klingon
that.
karaoke. Or
Yes.
I'll be mad.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Actually,
All
that's-
right. Just
But
checking.
I'm not going to say what I'm going to say.
Sure. That's fine.
So, yeah.
But, anyways, our special guest Tacofangs was kind enough to come on to the show this evening for an interview, but, anyways,
Hi guys. Welcome to DS9.
Yep. So, good sir, tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your duties at Cryptic.
I don't know. I'm a guy. I work here. I'm an environment artist, so we make the backgrounds of the game. We make the levels or the maps or whatever you want to call them. It's kind of like set building for the game. And we make everything that you run around in and on, and the lights and the skies, and we play God. It's fun.
So you basically make our planets look pretty, right?
That's one of the things. I did a bunch of work on the planets not long ago when we did the big update on all the planets. Yep.
Cool.
And our ship interiors, and obviously things like Deep Space Nine.
Things like
you're
Deep
the
Space Nine.
guy- You're the guy that's mostly responsible for this DS9 revamp, correct?
Well, I'm responsible for doing the work of actually
Yes.
building it, yes. I've definitely gotten a lot of help from my fellow environment artists, so I'm not going to claim all the credit by any means. There's a lot of extra work that's gone in here from other people. But I kind of have probably been on it the most of anybody.
Okay. Now, I am
Lately.
curious, so what goes into, when you start this kind of project, what is the process here? It's like,
So we've done a bunch. Well, we've done a number of canon rebuilds that I've worked on. So we started. The first one was probably the Voyager interior when we did that, and then we've done. We kind of redid some of the TOS stuff, although that had already existed, and then we did the TNG interior, and now we're doing DS9. And in each of those, there are plans, stage plans for what the sets were from a top-down view, right? You can see the layout of the sets and how they relate to the building around them. And I included an image of that in the blog that we did. And that image is, that tells you something, but it's hard to know exactly how big anything is, except that Paramount Studios, which is where all of these various Star Trek shows were filmed, still exists, and those stages still exist and still get used. And so Paramount actually has a website for each stage that tells you the exact dimensions of them, the weight capacities, where and what size pits they have, et cetera, et cetera. And so we can take those dimensions from the Paramount website and apply them to the stage plans, and now we have a one-to-one plan for what the stage looked like. So that's where we start. We started with that on all of those, and we'd take that plan into our modeling program, 3D Studio Max. We'd make it the right size, and then we start cutting everything out. And we create what's called a white box, which is a very simplified, version, a simplified geometry of that set. And then we start building everything else on top of it. So the white box generally serves kind of as a guideline, but isn't any of the final assets. And then we build all the final
Okay.
assets using that as a template.
So sounds like you start with
Okay.
a lot of architecture type stuff.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't actually have to do any drafting or anything, but it's
Right.
those plans already exist, and so we certainly use those to our advantage.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So Artie, you had a question too. I know you had some questions.
I have a few questions from a few of the RP community that decide that they need something answered, but it's more or less a popular opinion of it. But they were wondering what your thoughts on possible redesign of the bridge interiors. I mean, they saw how wonderful a lot of the newer bridge interiors were. They were wondering if the design crew would ever really go back and
I don't think
rescale them.
so. We're talking the very original, like the
Yes.
first bridges.
Yes.
I don't think that it's likely that we would redo those. I mean, they are just kind of what they are, and there's nothing, canon that they're based on. They're just kind of whatever people at the time decided to make. Those actually predate my time on Stowe, so it seems unlikely that we would go back and update those. It's more likely that we would, we certainly will just keep releasing new bridges. I don't think that we'd get rid of them necessarily unless we did like a huge revamp of everything. But there's also no reason to really go back and rebuild them. I mean, really, when we're looking at those old ones, there isn't a way that we could just like touch them up or make them better. It's very similar to DS9 where we would really just have to start over. And in that point, if we're starting over anyway, we're basically just building a new bridge anyway, then what's to say that it has anything to do with the old bridge, right? Yeah.
That makes sense. That answers my question. Crossing fingers for new bridges.
There certainly will be more bridges. I don't doubt that.
Yes. Okay.
And
So I actually do have a question from a friend of ours.
Okay.
So taking all of the Trek franchises into consideration, so, Discovery, Deep Space Nine, TNG, Voyager, Enterprise, and TOS, and TAS, and ignoring your favorite character and ship. Okay? I know.
Okay.
Just wait for it.
All right.
In which Trek setting do you see yourself? For example, like in what ship, location, role, etc.
Where would I personally
Yes.
want to live, or
Well, like, who do you see yourself as, or where would you see yourself as far as your personality? Where would you fit into that?
I've never been one to, say, oh, I want to be Data, or I want to be that person. I always tend to think of myself as still being myself in that world.
Okay.
If I were in that world, I would probably be Starfleet, and I would probably be, an engineer of some sort. So I'll say like Utopia Planitia is probably a likely spot, or somewhere like that. The various shipyards or Jupiter Station or something. I'm not, I'm an explorer, but I'm not a big adventurer, so I don't know that I'd want to cast off to the, far reaches of the universe. I'd probably, stick to the known universe and let other people explore distant lands.
Just
distant
build the
planets.
ships they go in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be super cool to, just travel around even local space, right? Like, even living in the U.S., right? There's a ton of the U.S. that I still haven't seen. And it's not that I don't want to go elsewhere, but there's also just, why not see other stuff and things that are nearby? So, I don't know. I would probably be an engineer somewhere.
Okay, good answer.
I could,
My turn or Blade?
Go ahead.
Alright, so this is a little bit of a rumor that's apparently been passed around in some of the RP community, that there was apparently thoughts of a full Sol system map, like showing off Utopia Planitia, Jupiter Station, and a lot of the outlying stations in Sol. They were wondering if that's actually a thing, or if it's just possible that's just rumors and nobody knows where that really came from.
Where did that come from?
Exactly
yeah.
my point.
So I think that might be a corruption of what I had originally wanted to do for the Sol system, which is not that there would be a single map that has all of that stuff, but that we would have multiple basically social system maps for... I actually made social system maps for each planet. And so you could fly towards the sun to get to the next closer planet and fly away from the sun to get to the next further planet, but they were all separate maps still. So, you know, from Earth, you would fly, you know, essentially away from the sun, and you would eventually hit the, you know, the wall, and that would also bring up, you know, warp to or jump to or whatever, Mars, right? And then that would put you into the Mars social system, and then so it's all the Sol system still, but they would all be separate maps. I don't think that we could possibly pull it off where we had them all those planets in one map. That would be crazy, unless we did something like Sector Space where it's all drastically scaled, right?
Right. Well, that makes sense to me. Yeah. The rumors were all sorts of different things, like, oh yeah, they're just going to make one giant map, and it's going to be the biggest map ever. It's going to be great. And I'm like, wait a second. Whoa.
Nope, that's some crazy talk right there.
All the data put into that's going to be crazy.
Yeah, no, unfortunately that wouldn't function.
Okay. All right. Darkblade, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Actually, yes. I actually had a chance to ask Ambassador Kale this same question. And suppose that Q or some other all-powerful entity comes to you, and they tell you that they're going to give you the knowledge to bring any one piece of Star Trek technology to life. Anything from replicators, holodeck. What do you pick and why?
You know, well, personal, like my personal Jones would be for a transporter, but I think that replicator technology would probably have a lot more benefit to humanity, and so I'd probably go for something like that. Assuming that, you know, it works the same way that it does in the show, where we can basically take anything and turn it into anything else. You know, within limits, I think that would be pretty powerful. However, you know, pulling that into our world of corporate greed means that it would just immediately get turned into, you know, manufacturing weapons or something, right? And it would be controlled by people who wouldn't let it be used for my intent of, you know, creating food for whoever, or, you know, creating housing or that kind of stuff. Building materials.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Alright. We have a question in our stream from Teve1980. What's one thing in the latest expansion that you would like to have done, but were not able to do?
Probably the habitat ring on DS9. We have rebuilt the ward room, the conference room that you saw on DS9 a bunch. But I really would have liked to have made the hallways outside of it so that it could be part of this social system, and you could take the turbo lifts over by the airlocks out to the habitat ring. And really all that needs is just the hallways made, so maybe we'll get to it at some point, but it's not made, and we don't really have time for it right now.
Okay. So what exactly so far? So we know that DS9 has been revamped, so what parts of DS9 are included in this revamping here?
I mean, pretty much just, well, it's the promenade, really, is what we're talking about, and Quarks is part of the promenade. So it's all of the rooms that are directly attached to the promenade. It is not the habitat ring or ops yet. Ops is something we'd like to get to, but it depends on time. It's not, you know, we didn't add the docking ring or any of that, but we've rebuilt the promenade in a pretty significant way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the wardroom, the conference room, is the only other part of that.
Yeah, it is definitely, it is very, very different. And, I mean, you guys can see Darkblade's showing off
We can run
the
around
new
Can run
rather
around
than,
here.
Space
rather
Nine,
than
yeah.
dancing.
Yeah, we can run around.
You done?
But, so what's your favorite part of what you've done here? Come show us here. We'll follow you.
Well, we're basically there. I think Quarks was a big challenge, and so it was really cool when it actually all came together and looked the part. It's really tough to figure out the geometry of things in here because everything was dark and shot from weird angles, and there's only like 2 or 3 shots of the third floor period, so there's a lot of research that had to go into it and trying to figure out how it all went together and all that. Even with plans, like the plans, the plans that we had, the stage plans, we still have to adjust them, not just for our size, but also because that things were not, or at least are not drawn in such a way that they're perfectly aligned. So if you look at the exterior of DS9, you can see the windows for the promenade, and there are 5 windows per bay, and there are 10 bays. And so if those are all at perfect angles to each other, then those bays are all 36 degrees apart from each other, right? 10 times 36 is 360. But on the plans, if you just draw, if you take those plans into 3D Studio Max and you draw circles to be the right size, so you have the pivot at the right place, and you cut those up, they were really like, 33 degrees or something. So everything has to get fudged a little bit to make it work in the full circle that it was always supposed to be, So there's a lot of that, especially in here too, and it's not, I loathe to point out my flaws, but it's still not perfect. Like there's still things that, like this ceiling for Quarks right here with the bright area right above the bar, and then you can see the little purple strips, and then the second floor, and there's supposed to be room right here for a kind of a ceiling light, a big curved one that fits between the floor of the second floor and the front of that big lighting fixture, and there just isn't room in mine. I don't understand really where I'm off. Otherwise, I would probably fix it. But there's a lot of that where we just keep fudging things back and forth and moving this one, and as soon as you think it's done, then you find some new shot or reference that says that, oh no, that's actually like this, so you go back and tweak that a little bit, and it's constantly shuffling things around to get things mostly looking right, even if they aren't perfect.
So how many shots of Quarks and Deep Space Nine did you pour through? Did you guys pour through to do this?
Well, we have a bunch of probably have a couple hundred photos from CBS of props and backstage photos and that kind of thing. But I also just watched a lot of DS9 and took my own screenshots, and I took about 2,600 screenshots total of DS9.
Jeez.
And that's basically like put on an episode that takes place on the station, right? Because there's some episodes just take place elsewhere, or mostly take place elsewhere.
Right.
So put on an episode that takes place on the station, press play, and as soon as some angle or shot comes up that you don't think you have that example of before, you press pause and you take a screenshot and you paste it in Photoshop. You do that over and over and over again until you have a lot of screenshots, and each of those screenshots then gets saved off to different folders. So I've got a folder for like every room. I have a folder for the lower promenade, the upper promenade, and then out of that, there's probably 300 or 400 screenshots just of the promenade concourse here, the ring of it. And so when I need to find examples of the marquee over Quark's door, scrolling through those 400 screenshots is a pain in the butt. So instead I scroll through them once to find all of the shots that have Quark's marquee, and then compile those into a separate image that just has all of the little like cutouts of here's Quark's marquee from this shot and here's Quark's marquee from that shot, so that we have kind of a single image that can be referenced for Quark's marquee rather than having to scroll through all of them back and forth and back and forth. Although there's still plenty of scrolling back and forth to find little snippets here and there.
So.
Yeah. And this marquee is obviously not done. This is still a work in progress. Donnie actually did this the other day, and it looks great. And it blinks obnoxiously the same way it did in the show. So.
So then there's another question. The hollow suites.
We don't have time to make them. No, they are not here.
Okay.
We don't have time to make them, but if you go up to the second floor here, there are doorways on the right and left side, and that's where you would access them.
Okay, that's where,
And you don't have my powers, but I can kind of fly back there, and there's room back behind this back wall for a couple of hollow suites, 2 or maybe 3 side by side, and the hallway that would be needed to get to them. If and when we, have an opportunity to do so, or a need to, we can certainly add them. But at the moment, they aren't made and are not there. So.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I noticed this was a big fun thing. I think we had some fun doing when I did my tour of Deep Space Nine, and that was the going up and down the staircases.
Yeah, people like staircases. I know they're funky, and I wish I could make them not funky, but it's just a matter of how steep they are. If you think about how a spiral staircase is made, if you think about that as being a ramp, which is the collision actually is, then the closer you get to that center pole, the more vertical the ramp becomes, which makes it basically impossible to actually run up. And so you just have to aim to the outside of that ramp, and then it'll work. So if you aim to the outside railing as you run up to it, it'll work for you usually.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I'm riding a roller coaster.
Yeah.
When I do it.
But failing that, we also put just interacts on the lower right, so you can just click to travel if you think it's too much of a pain to deal with the staircases themselves.
Oh, it's fun. I like it.
I don't know. I still say the fun thing is second floor, just walking in and out of Cork's bar.
The upstairs
Best
entrance.
thing that's ever been added. Yeah. It's simple, but it's just like, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in.
This is one area that was really hard too, because it was shown in a few episodes, but it's so many times it's like tight shots over the shoulder of some character talking, and so it was really hard to see how the whole thing worked together and how this outside light fixture, like this light pole and the big arched lights above the entrance on the outside all work. So there was a lot of research done to make sure that we got that right. It's weird too because they close the bar a couple of times, and when they do, they literally just hang curtains basically here and call them walls, or try to pretend that they would keep people out. But yeah, it's a little silly. There's also, this is another place where we kind of had to fudge things. Actually we need to remove the lights, it looks like. There's on the show, there's a couple of more of the glowy yellow tables here next to the railing, and we had them in, and it was just too cramped, and we couldn't move around, so we had to pull them out to make room just to maneuver.
Okay.
Interesting.
And there's 3 different styles of table, too. There's the main glowy table, and then a version of the table that's down in the Replimat that doesn't have the glowy parts and has a different set of legs. And then there's this one, which is a little, bar table kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Finding reference for those, too, and how the legs worked on each of them was tough. A lot of times, too, even outside of the CBS shots, we could find shots from the Christie's auctions over the years, or just from fans who bought the various props and were, displayed them because they had them. So we'd use some of those shots too as a reference for how to build some of the things.
Okay. So what else we got? Quarks. What else do we got here on Deep Space Nine? Oh, and is there a spot where you can sit on the railing
It's not
like
in
Nog
yet.
and Jake?
It's not in yet, but it's right here. It's where I'm standing. This was Nog and Jake's spot next to Quark's, and so so you will be able to double click, on the little invisible interacts there, but only if you know it or notice that your mouse changes. So there's nothing advertising that's there, but there's 2 spots next to each other.
Okay.
Close enough.
Yeah, you can certainly do that too. And you can actually, if you're real careful, you can actually get over on the outside and do it. Oh shit. Sorry. There we go. And then.
I get the feeling he's using dev powers.
Nope, no dev powers. This
Nope?
is all
Okay.
just me manually typing EM sit chair.
Okay.
Okay.
Whee!
Yeah, you guys have definitely gone all out on this, it seems. Very... just like actually stepping into an episode of the show.
I'm glad.
Yes.
We've actually shown it to a few of the actors now who came through. J.G. Hertzler came through, we showed him, and then Max Grodenchek and Chase both came through, and we showed both of them, and both of them were very impressed and said it was like they felt like they were home again, which is really a sweet thing to say and makes me feel good about our work. So, yeah.
There's no better thing than to hear that from the actors themselves. I mean, they spent 7 years on it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
these sets. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I know we've talked previously in Vegas about the old DS9, and the old DS9 was good. I mean, it felt pretty good. It was close, but this is definitely so much better.
I describe the old DS9 as a kind of an impressionist painting. If you squint or if you stand 10 feet back from your monitor, it looks great. It looks like DS9. But if you get up close and start investigating things, then it just turns into lumpy blobs of paint. So,
Yeah.
you guys can lead on. I don't know where we're going.
I don't know. I just keep on going back to these little info signs and whatever. I can actually read what they say. It's
Well,
wonderful.
this is just taken straight from the from one of the books. Actually, we got scans out of that, but we're redoing it so it'll actually be a better image and also include some of the actual places. So we'll have all of the individual locations that are on our promenade listed in the listing, the English listing anyway. Everything else is gibberish. So.
Oh, Garrick's Clothers is still on here.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to go check out Garrick's. Where is
Sure.
Garrick's from here?
You don't know? Sorry, I know I'm so used to this now that I'm just, wait, what? How do you not know where Garrick's is?
I know
Garrick's
it's
is over here.
somewhere around this circle.
So this spot, this spot over by Garrick's is basically the end of what they built. So this is Garrick's room, and where I'm standing was basically the end of the set. And so there was just a kind of a curtain or a panel back here that was painted to look like like the promenade went on. So this room, though, where Garrick's is, was used for everything else. So all of the temporary sets that were made, the holding cells, the assay office, the schoolroom, they were all in this room. And so we chose to make it Garrick's because that's kind of what it was probably most known for, or most loved for anyway, and put those other things, into their proper places, or into other places anyway.
Now, since Artie's the RP guy, I think I'll let him tell everybody or talk about the special feature of this room. I think he knows what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Don't mind me. Don't mind the hologram behind the curtain. But no, yeah,
That's awesome.
right. It's great.
We've had cloth in the game
detail.
for a while. We actually had banners and stuff back on the Dyson Sphere, and probably before that at various points, but it's not something that we get to use very often, and it seemed appropriate here. Garrick, there's a bunch of different iterations of Garrick's. Every time they remade it, they kind of changed some stuff. But in the version that I like the most, he's got curtains in here, and this is where Bashir hid back here when he was here to listen in on Lursa and Beitor's dealings.
Oh,
He got snuck in and shoved in the dressing room, so I figured that was a good place to put him.
Okay.
definitely. Okay. Where to
And
next?
Andrew Robinson
Okay.
just recorded his lines the other day, so we'll be hearing from him more later. I don't think we'll put Garrick in here, but yeah.
Garrick's busy doing stuff with the Cardassians now. Okay, where to next?
You know,
Let's see. Where's sick bay?
Sick bay is back the other way. Everything canon is going to be back this way. Where we are now is the back half of the ring, and what they built on the show was only about, I forget, about 110 degrees of the full 360, and so we had to fill in the rest of that, and in doing so we had to make up a bunch of stuff. But what we did to try and kind of bring back some stuff too, they did a big change between season 1 and season 2, and then a little bit more in season 2 to the sets. And so some of the stuff that was in season 1 we never saw again, but we Cryptic decided that it should be part of the promenade anyway. So this is the Jumja stand, which was only in season 1, and so rather than just completely inventing everything back here, we chose a couple of the season 1 pieces and put them back here as, you know, kind of an homage to season 1, and also to make it feel like it's all still part of the promenade.
So then, is this going to have like Jumja, the Jumja displays?
Donnie literally just finished adding all of the Jumja on the front and a big display in the back, and you can buy Jumja here if you want.
Yes,
it's only 20 energy credits, and it's the only thing you can buy.
It's the only thing you can buy.
Yep. I'm excited. I was hoping for this. It's just like, yes, finally. Now we can all just stand in line, gain Jumja.
And we did include both the powdered sugar variety and the non-powdered sugar variety, so you can have your choice. Although I guess he doesn't give you a choice, he just says Jumja. Infirmary's back this way. And the infirmary will have us the infirmary logo sign up on the outside of this curved part, but the blue is always indicative of infirmary.
Infirmary. Wow. Okay. So lots of detail in here.
Yeah.
You can definitely see the detail in the LCARs, the computer.
And that is a big credit to Tim Davies, who's our EU marketing artist and known as Suricata in the community. He just volunteered to do more LCARS work for us. He's done some in the past. He did the MSD for the Voyager interior and for the TNG interior, as well as some LCARS there. And he was very excited to get to work on this, and we were very excited to have his help because it's a big undertaking for anyone, and especially for environment artists who aren't usually the graphic designer types. So he helped us a lot in doing this and the animated monitors that you'll see around here too. So
sweet,
very awesome. And the biobed. Can you lay on the biobed? Of course.
I mean, you can if you get up there. This is a Federation one. We're hoping to be able to make the canon one and swap it out, but that'll depend on time still. So
I'll be honest, I'm happy that the chairs actually have the little old like office chair rolly wheels at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
These are actually Voyager chairs right now. Again, we're hoping to make more correct chairs, but at worst we'll material swap them to look a little different. They'll make them look more gray and purple or something instead. So.
I can tell you right now, all the RPers are probably just so excited about just the sheer detail about everything. Like, we're going to see a whole lot more RP on DS9 now just because of this.
That's great. I'm excited that people are excited for it. It's been a big undertaking for years now. We started it years ago, and so it's been great to finally see it all come together. And honestly, even just 2 weeks ago maybe is when design finally added all these civilians and the NPCs and things moving around, and that really brought it to life. It was really cool to see people moving around besides just my character, you know, and it, you know, even if they do jump in stupid ways here and there, it just made it feel like a real place for once.
The temple.
Yep, Joran Temple is here. There are no chairs. There were no chairs.
Nope. They're
Lots
just all
of prylars,
standing there.
though. Yep.
Yeah, lots of prylars and of course an orb.
Yep.
Gotta have an order.
And a Vulcan monk, for some reason. A couple Vulcan monks.
I guess they're
on a cultural exchange program.
That's exactly it, yeah. That'd be it.
That's the answer, and we're sticking to it.
Yep.
Okay.
We've got the Klingon Deli, which has also been recently touched up.
Sweet.
We're hoping to have him play his concertina, but I can't guarantee it.
So is this the only dance that he does?
Well, he's just dancing temporarily.
He's
Yeah,
just dancing,
this is still Tribble, remember? So
yeah, that's true.
There's still more to come.
Awesome, and you can buy only Klingon food from him.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, I can get the octopus.
The freshest gach on DS9, because the replicators do not do it justice, I'll tell you.
Yep.
And then you guys already saw the security office, but that's here, and security holding is back behind it. Let's show.
There's
I feel like I should
actually
see
a question
bucket
in
the
chat.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Odo's bucket. Somebody else suggested a decent place to put it, so I might make it. I'm not sure yet, but maybe I'll do that.
Just like kick it under the desk.
That would be funny.
It wouldn't be here anymore because he's not security anymore,
right.
but it might be on the station still. And the holding cells are here, which you guys saw too. You guys recognize the Ferengi that's locked up?
Wait a minute.
Who is that?
Oh.
Is that Hog?
He was the old negotiated deal guy on DS9. He was the like shady arms dealer off in the corner or in the back of Quarks or whatever.
They finally got him.
They finally got him, and he's been.
Finally got him.
And like any business, once one goes down, something else pops up in its place. So you'll have to find that one, which is also a little nod to another Star Trek thing.
We have looks like an Orion. Is that a Nausicaan or a Klingon? Laying there asleep. Boy, they've been busy today, security has.
This is a Nausicaan, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then did you guys catch the security? I want to say the wanted list out here.
Oh no, didn't. Hold on.
I did not.
Have a bounty board? What? This is
Oh my
great.
lord.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Who's the most wanted?
That is...
I don't know, but there's a Starfleet officer on here.
I was gonna say, is there a picture of Teacher Kirby on there?
There isn't, but they are people that some people might recognize.
Oh.
Sweet.
Wow. Wanted list. That's cool.
I see one looks like Slavic, I think.
Possibly. It's kind of. I'm not getting a lot of detail. I'd have to zoom in.
Yeah, they're pretty small.
Yeah. They are pretty small. Maybe a high render scale might clear it up.
Probably not. It's probably just texture resolution at that point, so render scale won't help you.
Wow, the detail that goes into this. You are a very detail-oriented person. Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have definitely outdone yourselves on this one, especially the new ships, the station, the whole 9 yards.
Thank you very much.
So then...
I actually do. I'll go ahead, Kirby.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually do have a question for you. This is more a personal thing. Like, on screen in Deep Space Nine, we don't actually get to see too many of the Jem'Hadar ships. I think we get to see the Dreadnought, we get to see the Bug ship, and of course, the smaller version of that, which is the heavy escort carrier. But for factions like that don't really have a lot of on-screen examples of their ships, how do you guys go about getting ideas for the newer types of vessels?
Well, that's more a question for Thomas, I guess, but, you know, they take reference... I mean, it's the same thing as, like, us building any other Starfleet stuff, right? We take reference from the show. So, we know what a couple of Jem'Hadar ships look like, and that's actually better than some of the not factions, but some of the species where we get one ship or something to go off of. So we take cues from that and try to build things that seem like they're in a similar vein. So Jem'Hadar ships are, you know, purple and gray, right? And they've got purple glowies, and they tend to be kind of swoopy, angular with some negative space in them. So the Jem'Hadar Dreadnought, or the battleship, and the battle cruiser kind of have similar aesthetics going, and so we can extrapolate that to try and make our own versions of them. And generally what will happen is we'll take those ideas to our concept artist Hector, who will draw up a bunch of very simple, small sketches for various shapes that we might go with, and then we'll kind of look at those and say, well, I like F, and I like, you know, M, and we'll pick those, and we'll kind of elaborate on those in concept art, and then we'll, once we've decided which of those we like, we'll then make that in 3D. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
There is a question we have here in chat from Orange-itis. Has there been any effort to put more reputation costume assets in missions other than maps like there was in Dust to Dust with the Mako officer?
I have no idea. That's way beyond any of my scope, I'm afraid. That's somewhere between character art and design, but not environment art, I'm afraid.
It's beyond his pay grade.
Yep. Try for another question, Orange-itis.
In the meantime, we can go through the airlock doors, which people were very adamant about wanting to be able to work.
Yes, please.
So, when you approach DS9, the DS9 system map now, as you get close to the station, it will now prompt you to dock the same way that it did before, but it will give you two options. One is to beam down, and one is to dock. And the only difference between those two is where it spawns you. So if you transport, you'll end up in the transporter, and if you dock, you'll end up in one of these 4 airlocks around the station, and it will randomize which one you're in, and then you'll come out to the promenade proper. So you can choose your starting point, essentially, or at least roughly, and the transporter is right next door to that airlock.
Okay.
And this, you remember when we were over at Garrick's, we said that was the end of the stage. This was the other end of that stage. That red light to my left here was beyond the transporter room, but that was it. Then there was a wall here. So from here all the way back over to Garrick's is all invented by us.
That is just, well. Yeah, that's... That breaks my brain, not gonna lie.
What does?
What does?
Just like all the
Sheer
stuff.
detail and just wow.
Yeah. And if you, like I say, if you hadn't told us that, you know, that red light about being the end of the stage, or the other thing down there at Garrick's, I honestly would have had no idea. I honestly wouldn't.
Oh, you thought they built the whole stage, the whole 360?
Well,
No.
not necessarily that. It's just, in my book, it is that well done that unless you knew that specifically, you couldn't tell. You just think it's something that they had done on the show. That is, in my opinion, how well you guys have done with this.
Oh, thank you.
And of course, we have over here the shipyard, the new shipyard, which is not really a shipyard, being repair your ship and buy new ships and customize and all that stuff. I like how close together this all is.
Yeah, we were worried about it being too tight, but I think it'll be okay as long as we aren't cramming 20 people in here at once.
Yep. No rave parties in the shipyard.
Right across.
Well, you can try, just don't expect to get any actual work done.
Then right next to the exchange and the bank. That's,
yeah, right across.
That is very,
very handy,
very convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we you know, kind of intended with ESD. Not that they were directly next to each other, but that each of them was visible from the other, and so it was easier to navigate than the old ESD, which it was in a ring and they were all separated. So you didn't, when you came out of one, you didn't know whether you went left or right to get to the next one. So we wanted to make sure they were all visible and had relatively short paths between them. This, you know, because it's still a ring, we basically have a pretty limited distance to work within to try and make sure that the shipyard and the exchange and mail and your start point are all relatively close to each other. But it worked out because the transporter was right at the end, then it meant that we could invent the shipyard and the exchange right past that and connect them all together, which worked pretty well.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool.
And we have another question in chat from Orange-itis again. Was there any thought into any queues or games for the summer event that takes place in the Ryzian luxury cruiser atrium section for the excuse of making a bridge interior map?
I have heard no plans for that, no, or any you know, talk of that. That sounds cool, but no, I haven't heard anybody talk about that yet. The ticket booth right behind you guys, that was another thing that we pulled out of Season 1. Not that it serves any real purpose, it was just another one of those items. This used to be, in Season 1, it was right next to the security office. You could see it when the hunters blew up the security office door. It was sitting right there.
Okay.
All these little details. Must drive you nuts when something doesn't line up right.
It's a lot of fiddling. It's a lot of fiddling.
Yeah.
And there are things where I'm just, you know, bashing my head against it for a while until it finally clicks, and it's like, oh, I get it now. And it's such a release to finally understand how those things go together. I just had an experience with that on something, and it was very nice to finally have it all come together and look right and all that.
So what other maps in-game have you done? You mentioned the Voyager interior.
Oh god, a lot. New ESD, the Voyager interior, the TNG interior, New Romulus, a ton of just individual mission maps here and there. I can't even tell you what they all are. Other stuff. Sorry, my brain is gone. Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Okay. Now, I am curious, so for you as a design artist or interior design artist or environments, this is what my brain's on.
That's all right.
Which do you prefer? Ones that are canon, where you have to follow, you know, you're trying to get it to match up to what's been shown on screen, or something where you have more free reign, like with the new ESD?
They're both a pain in the butt in their own ways. Working from screen is really nice because you have things to follow and you don't have to just try to come up with stuff that feels like it works. But then you have to follow it, and if you stray even a little bit, if you get that, you know, that pillar in just slightly off, you know, the wrong place, then it doesn't look right, and then you have to fix it. So there's good and bad to both. When you're working without IP or with, you know, on new stuff, then you're free to make whatever you want. But it also means that you have to be creative enough to come up with all of that stuff, which is, you know, can also be a bit of a pain. So I like both. I like kind of going back and forth from one to the other, so that I'm not, because you know, you work on one for a while and you get sick of it. I'm getting to that point with DS9 where I'm just tired of seeing it. You know, luckily we're also getting close to being done with it. And so when I'm done with this, I'm sure that I will yearn for the creative freedom of just kind of building whatever I want. But after a while of doing that, I'll be tired of having to come up with stuff, and I'll be looking for another canon thing to rebuild. This is a lot of fun, I have to say. Rebuilding from canon is a lot of fun. It's a big puzzle hunt of trying to find those shots of that one thing or that one. Ceilings in particular are always a problem because whoever takes a shot of the ceiling, right? You know, trying to find a picture of what that one console looks like or that corner thing is or whatever. The infirmary was a giant giant mess because it's such a weird shape. We can go back over there. It's such a weird shape, and everything, like, there's nothing to you know, base measurements on or anything, so you just kind of go by feel and white box and white box and white box until you think you have it right, and then you model some of it, and then, like, I thought I had it all pretty well done when I started doing finished modeling on all the floor stuff, and then I went to lay out the ceiling, and based on some photos, you know, various screenshots from various seasons of the ceiling, and doing this pattern on the ceiling, and it was like, oh my whole room shape is wrong now that I've laid out the patterns here, because that line is supposed to intersect with that line at this point, but clearly it doesn't. It's halfway through that line, and it needs to be at, you know, 3/4 of that way through that line, so that doesn't work. So how did, you know, so it's a lot of fun, but it's also very you know, not frustrating, but just there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of correction needed over and over again.
Okay, I have a question from a Foundry friend of mine. As what happened with ESD, when the new SD came out, it's map and assets went to the Foundry. Are you excited to see what some people may do to this baby you've constructed?
I would love to see some Foundry missions here. That would be great. We also just hooked up all of the Foundry doors in here, and I think you guys are going to like some of the new interacts compared to some of the old ones. So it'll be nice to see what people decide to use and how they do it, what maps they make and all that. Did you fall asleep on the med bed in there? Fell asleep standing up on the bed. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. I did the wrong one. I always forget which one is when you actually lay down. There you go.
Yeah.
Not quite it.
Doesn't look comfortable, but
no.
You know. The medical bed in here is also kind of a pain. There's two versions of it. There's a flat one and one with the back, kind of the person sitting up a little bit. And while what the actual bed surface looks like is pretty well documented, what the frame is underneath is almost impossible to find. Same with Cisco's desk. Cisco's desk, like, we know what the top looks like, but no one knows what the bottom of that thing looks like. I found a couple of screenshots where I could kind of, I had to, you know, go into Photoshop and levels the crap out of it in order to see anything, and I kind of have an idea, but I'm still inventing stuff, so.
Okay, I think I got it. There, take a nap.
This is not the nap room. Are you injured?
No, not injured. But figured I'd have some fun.
Yeah.
Eddie. I had some.
Here's one. Is there any particular map that you would like to add to the game that you may currently not have been able to, assuming no time constraints or anything like that?
I've been lucky to do two of them, two complete revamps. The ESD and DS9 were both things that were on my list that I really wanted to do, and I never thought would actually happen. And then here we are, right? We have revamped ESD, we have revamped DS9. On my list is actually Starfleet Academy. I think it's a much better map than old DS9 was. I think it's in much better shape, but it's still starting to show its age, and there's a lot of things on that map that have... It's seen a lot of updates over the years that have all kind of been patchworked in, and so things don't jive kind of the way that they should, and I think that we could do a much better job of that map today. So it's not that the map is terrible, I think that we could just do a better job now, and I think that would be fun to work on. So that's probably my next, windmill to tilt at.
So, because I know people are going to ask, so what about First City?
Yeah, that'd be fun too. I think that it could use some help. I don't know that it necessarily needs the full revamp the same way that some other stuff does, but it would help to, certainly the layout of that map is a little bit wonky and doesn't, condone easy access or easy use of the map. So I'd be totally down for that. It's just a matter of what comes down the pike, I'm actually really, ESD was a big undertaking. DS9 has been double or triply so. Because everything in, like, Starfleet stuff, for the most part, they make a wall panel and they repeat that wall panel everywhere. And DS9, everything is custom. Everything is, one-off. I mean, there are certainly things that get repeated, but, like, there are so many just little signs or this little wall, and every wall has to be, its own shape and its own placement and angled differently, and signs are different, and there's just a lot of little tiny pieces to DS9. So First City would be a lot of fun. It would just be a matter of whether we got time to do it.
So now on the time question, how long does it take to do a whole revamp like this?
I've lost track with DS9, and DS9 is hard because we started a couple years ago, and then shelved it for a while, and then picked it up again. I'd say it would take, a couple of what we call sprints, 6-week chunks, to do First City. I would say at least two full sprints to do First City. Part of the problem there too is that we don't have nearly as much Klingon stuff as we have Federation stuff. That was true of Cardassian stuff as well. But we would have a lot more freedom because First City was never really shown, right? We saw a couple of little shots, but nothing like what we saw of DS9. So that's one of those things where it's a trade-off, right? We don't have something to follow, so we'd have to invent it. But at the same time, that means that it wouldn't take nearly as long as DS9 does because we don't have to spend all that time adjusting things to try and get that light to fit the right place, because we can just model it the way that we say we want to model it and say that light doesn't belong there, that light goes over there. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. One step at a time, though. We're still getting used to this, getting done with this.
So every once in a while, we've been hearing the Quark commercial. Come to Quark's, run, don't walk.
Come to Quark's. Quark's is fun. Come right now.
Right now.
Walk.
Don't
run,
walk. Run.
Don't walk.
Don't
run.
walk.
That's
Run.
right.
That's what.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's right now it plays every minute or so. I want to turn it off so that it plays every maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Make it something that's a little bit more special to come across. Yeah. And ideally, I'd like to make a little animated, Dabo wheel for this monitor with Quark's name on it. I don't know if we'll have time to do that, but I think it'd be fun to see that.
Now, see, I'd be curious if you could take the actual footage of the ad from, or render it up, the actual footage from the
I mean, we certainly.
I
think we probably have license to do that, but we haven't taken anything directly from a screenshot of the
like
show,
that.
And I feel like that would look out of place. I think that we should make it ourselves to make sure that put our Dabo wheel in the background, right? To make it all feel like it's still part of our Stowe universe, not just the Star Trek universe as a whole.
Okay. Details.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
It's those details again. But yeah, definitely. Any other questions, guys? Because we've been chatting for an hour. We could probably go on like this forever.
Yeah. Probably.
For ages.
I got none. I answered all my questions.
All right.
That's about what I've got.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for chatting with us, Tacofangs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, a little while down the road and everything, we might, once everything's said and done, might be able to book another interview sometime
sure.
or something.
I'm always here.
But, yep. But, anyways, thank you for joining us, good sir. Everything. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and everything. But, anyways, thanks to our viewers out there that joined us and everything, and coming out to ask some questions of our very special guest this evening. But join us as well on Saturday nights at 10, 9 Central, everything. But anyways, folks, for now, this is the Pilot Review Show reminding you, please have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
Catch you around.
Bye.
Good night.